Stephen A., can Butler coexist with CP3 and Harden?
No.
Why?
Absolutely not. It'd be the stupidest thing in the world that Daryl Morey could do. It has nothing to do with their talent. It has everything to do with their mentality. With James Harden playing in Mike D'Antoni's system, what you would have is a situation where James Harden would be ball dominant. CP3 himself doesn't necessarily want to deal with that. He thinks the ball should be a bit more distributed, not necessarily evenly, because Chris Paul came from the Clippers to Houston to be off the ball to some degree because he had the ball going through him all the time when he was with the Clippers, and he didn't want to do that anymore. But the bottom line is that he didn't expect it to be a total 180 reversal to the point where you're sitting around and playing the role of spectator with James Harden. So that's problematic in and of itself. And then let us remind ourselves about what Jimmy Butler's initial problem was when he arrived in Philadelphia. Brett Brown took some time to configure him into the offense. And Jimmy Butler's like, I'm waking up 5:30. Jimmy Butler and I in the locker room talking like, I wake up 5:30 every morning to work out, bro. I'm ready to go. I ain't do that to stand around and stand in some damn corner. What the hell is that about? And then ultimately, Brett Brown was like, I'm working you in. And I spoke to Brett Brown about this as well. And he was working Jimmy Butler to the point where Jimmy Butler would take over in the fourth quarter of games. And Ben Simmons, because he couldn't shoot perimeter shots, and Max Will would be put on the baseline, rebound, putbacks, things of that nature. What I'm saying is Jimmy Butler and CP3's mentality and temperament with James Harden as a teammate and D'Antoni as a coach, you talk about a walking disaster. It will be absolutely the worst possible thing that the Houston Rockets could do pairing those three in that system. If those three come together, D'Antoni has to go.
Didn't you report, was this yesterday, that it's really Butler or CP3?
Right.
That Butler is a way to move CP3's contract?
I said that's what they should be doing. I said that's what they should be doing, yes.
If we're talking about
not the three of them together.
James Harden and Jimmy Butler.
Right.
I like it better than Harden and CP3.
That's fine. That's fine.
And the reason I like it better is, first of all, Butler went into a kind of dysfunctional situation. Not dysfunctional, but a situation with it was fraying at the edges a bit in terms of the relationships and the locker room stuff and the way they performed on the court in Philadelphia. It wasn't perfect. And you threw him into that mix, and he made them much better. They came within a hair of beating the eventual champs. Gave him a better series than the KD-less Warriors did, in fact. And a lot of that was Jimmy Butler. I love the idea of Butler with Harden. First of all, when you have James Harden, you should pair him with a backcourt mate who can defend. And while CP3 can defend, he's getting a little long in the tooth, and he's small. Butler is not small, and he can really defend. And late in games where it's really not James Harden time in the playoffs, Jimmy Butler just showed the world what he can do late in games in the playoffs. I actually think if you can swap out CP3 for Jimmy Butler, the Rockets just got better.
They cannot coexist. I'm doubtful that Jimmy Butler and James Harden can coexist as a pair. I am certain that CP3, Jimmy Butler, and James Harden cannot coexist. We're not just dressing alike, we're thinking alike. And I would go one step further. First of all, they cannot coexist because I cannot make sense of any way contractually you can get all three of these guys on the same squad. They are over the cap. They are strapped. How are you going to afford Jimmy Butler? That's a pipe dream.
It has to be for Chris Paul.
So then you move on to for Chris Paul. And by the way, then we get into the issues that Stephen A. started to line out, which is, first of all, basketball reasons. James Harden's usage rate is an issue, all right? It's an issue for everyone except for James Harden. And you cannot assume that wouldn't be a problem for Jimmy Butler as well. You're absolutely right about why it worked in Philadelphia, because he had a role that he could appreciate as the closer there where other guys couldn't. Who's that going to be?
Why wouldn't you make Jimmy Butler the closer when James Harden, in the playoffs in particular, can't close?
All right, we nominate you to go to Houston and explain that to James Harden.
That's right. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Listen. Jimmy Butler was bringing the ball up the floor. He was playing a little point in Philly, right? Hold on a second.
You're making sense. It's not going to happen.
What's not going to happen?
They won't do it. That's the problem with D'Antoni. It's not going to happen.
And Max,
we're not refuting what you're saying.
But here's
we're just saying it's not going to happen.
Here's the bottom line. You think it's not going to happen. How are you going to explain it to Harden, blah, blah, blah. Then the moment of truth comes in the playoffs, in a tight game, late in the game, and one dude wants it and one dude doesn't.
That is why Fertitta and D'Antoni and Morey worry with the contract situation exists because you had a problem with D'Antoni's inability or unwillingness to make those adjustments during a game in the postseason.
James
That's
Harden
the
wants it at the end of
problem.
games
I
in
think
the
James,
playoffs?
I think James Harden wants it.
You
Yes.
think he wants to respond?
I think
because
he
this
does.
is what I notice. I notice he jumps under Draymond's green legs and looks at the ref. He's looking for a bailout. Butler's not looking for a bailout. He's looking to hit that
Because
shot.
it's always worked for James Harden. That's why he's doing it. He is conditioned to
never
believe
worked in the
he's going to
playoffs.
get that call. He's
Not in the
conditioned to believe it's going
playoffs.
to work. I'm not saying you're doing this, but I believe that too many people look at basketball as though it's NBA 2K. Let me put together the best individual talent pieces I can, and I will have a team. And it negates the idea that human beings are involved.
Wait, of
Hold on,
course.
I just said I do not say you're doing this. These are people with personalities. So you saying Jimmy Butler and James Harden are going to work it out? James Harden and Chris Paul didn't work it out. This is why, by the way, we should give Kevin Durant so much credit. Kevin Durant did something that superstars do not do. This right here is not something that can coexist.
Wait.
Close it like
There's
this. Jimmy Butler is smart. If he's smart, he won't want to go home to Houston where he was born and raised. That man will want to go, stay in Philly. Stay in Philly. They love him there. He should stay in Philly.
There's a difference between saying it's ideal and saying it can work. I wasn't sure Jimmy Butler would work in Philly, but it worked out just about as well as it possibly could have. The question is not, is it ideal? The question is it an improvement on Harden, Chris Paul, which, by the way, came within a few shots of getting past the Warriors 2 years